hair's starting to bother me. You guys like my bun on the top and then my little like ponytail right here. It's so great. It's falling out. So after wisdom teeth removal, countless stressful events with family happening, I'm finally back in front of the camera and I am sort of more ready than ever to make a video for you guys, because this time it is going to be pretty exciting, kind of ranty, pretty fun. It's all about the All-Star Game. The All-Star Game, I wouldn't say the nominations are bad as a whole, but there were enough bad ones to say that, you know what, overall I'm kind of really bothered by the selections. So let's just clear the elephant out of the room and talk about Jonathan Toews' nomination. And that was, I probably went to, of course I just like looked through, the day that the All-Star Rosters were it came out, I was actually sitting in class, and right as it turned 10 o'clock I was like, alright, let's check NHL.com, and nothing was there. So you kept refreshing, I'm like paying attention to the lecture, refreshing, and finally they show up. I'm like scrolling through and I'm like, alright, Central, this is cool. And I scroll through, I just like look through right away and I'm like, Panarin's not there. What's going on? I'm like, see Kane, read through a little bit more, and I'm like, Toews. Everybody knows that Toews is not having a stellar year this year in terms of offense. I mean, like 3 months ago, he even said so. He even said, hey, you know what, I'm not having the offensive production I really want right now. And so, are we surprised? Yes, we're surprised by the nomination, but we shouldn't be surprised that he himself, and multiple writers are actually reporting this, that he himself is saying that there were snubs and he doesn't deserve to go. Like, we shouldn't be surprised by that. And everybody's making a big deal out of, Toews shouldn't be going. And it's like, he says he shouldn't be going. Like, yes, he shouldn't be going. It's not that so much that Toews is like a bad player. It's just more of the fact that there were a lot more deserving players on the Blackhawks, like Anisimov, which I really don't think Anisimov, I mean, he's a great player and all, but I just don't know if he's going to have the ability to, given all the plethora of talent that is in Chicago, I don't think he's going to have really a chance to make it to the All-Star Game again. So I think he would have been a great nomination. Obviously Panarin, but I mean, he's on the up and up. He's young. He's going to be here for years and years to come. And Hossa also would have been a good choice, because we all know, I mean, unfortunately, he's nearing the end of his career. So, I mean, just that one final oomph, you know, he's doing great this year, even though he's had so many injuries. Same with Anisimov. I think any three of those guys would have been a much better choice than Toews, so I'm just really unsure as to why they chose Toews. Because, I mean, Toews, as I said earlier, came out and said, hey, you know what, I'm not doing that great this season. Clearly it's a bad nomination, but I mean, Toews is going to have fun with it, Kane is going to have fun with it. It's just going to be cool to see. I mean, because Toews is a great dude, especially over the years. He's really lightened up from his Captain Serious phase. So, I mean, he's going to have fun with it, and all this is about just having fun. And it's not like he's not a talented player in the first place. I mean, he's very skillful. And this might be sort of the thing, just get him rolling, so the back half of the season, he really kills it. Moving on from the Blackhawks, because I could probably talk about them for ages, I'm going to move on to the Blue Jackets, who are the most dominant team in the NHL right now, even after they went on their little lose streak right there after their win streak. Their definite snub had to be Cam Atkinson. He has 40 points in 40 games. I mean, that's a point per game. That's a point per game in the NHL. That's pretty darn good. I mean, there's no other way to say that. And he was not put on there. He is Columbus's best player. Like, let's just think about this. The best team in the NHL, you would think you would put the best player from the best team. Right now, the best team is Columbus, and their best player is Cam Atkinson. But Cam Atkinson isn't there? Like, they don't add up, and I think it was a really big mistake on the, you know, probably the worst snub of the entire thing. I mean, I'm just like, sort of floored at the fact that it's sort of, I mean, you're not putting the best player on the best team in the All-Star Game. I mean, he is having an All-Star year. I mean, Cam Atkinson alone, like, normally is a good player, but I mean, this year he's just phenomenal, and it's like, why is he not going? I mean, I understand he would make them 3 nominees, but it's like, that's not a big deal. I mean, we had 5 Chicago Blackhawks a few years ago because we voted them in. We should have no problem with having 3 Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, given space and maybe everything, we need people that Cam Atkinson should have been there. There's like no reason to kick him out. 40 points in 40 games, point per game in the NHL, that is enough for me. Like, that is sealed the deal, you are an all-star. And also on the topic of Columbus, I'm sort of confused as why they picked Seth Jones over Big Z, Zach Werenski. Zach, I mean, he's a standout rookie. I personally think he's going to win the Calder. I love Seth Jones because, I mean, I loved him back when he was in Nashville. But I just don't think he's, out of the two, I don't think he's the greater of the two. I mean, both of their stats really aren't bad. I mean, they're both very good stats. So, I mean, they're good defensemen, so it's not like, hey, you snubbed Big Z, as I call him. You snubbed him for Seth Jones, like, who's a bad defenseman. No, like, they're both very good players. I mean, because Werenski is averaging 0.6 points per game, and Jones is averaging 0.5. So, I mean, there's really not much of a difference between the two. Except kind of age. There's not even that much difference in age anyways, I don't think. I think it's like a year or two. So there's not much of a difference, but I do think when you put them together, or like put them next to each other, Zach is definitely the better one. And I think because he's a rookie, because I think he's a little bit more of maybe a big name, at least in recent years, or like this year I should say, I think he definitely should have been the choice because after all, the NHL is a business, and you sort of need to think business-wise and think who's going to bring in the most amount of people, which is where my next one sort of gets a little confusing and a little, So being the person who I am, I would say, you know what, Noah Hanifin is so worthy of an all-star nomination. I love Noah Hanifin, he's so perfect, and all of those things are exactly true that I say, that is exactly true that I would say them, but I understand that he might not be an all-star this year. But do I agree that Justin Falk is for the Hurricanes? Yes and no. The only other defenseman from Carolina that I could really think of replacing Falk would be Jacob Slavin. And that's merely because of their points. Because Falk has sort of been here and there, injuries, and Slavin's been there. He's been there all the games so far, and he's playing top-line minutes. I mean, he did last year, which, I mean, I sort of have some tension with him because he took Noah's spot on the top pair when Falk got injured last year, so I'm sort of like at distance with Jacob Slavin. I'm a little like, you know what, got some bitterness when you were on top pair and Noah wasn't. So, the two of them, their stats, while they vary just a tiny bit, I really do believe that there's so much just like, it's not even relevant, like the difference. I'm trying to think of the phrase for it, like what it means. It's like, the difference between their numbers, like I looked up their Corsi, I looked up their, you know, everything pretty much besides plus or minus is pretty much like the difference between them is so insignificant it doesn't even matter. I mean, you could literally put Falk in or you could put Slavin in and it would be like the same exact thing. It's really not that big of a deal. The only difference, as I said, was their plus or minus. Falk is a -10 and Slavin is a +11, which that is a big, big difference. So, I mean, if you're still really big into plus or minus, which I kind of am, kind of not, don't really base a lot on it, I would say you put Slavin in, but if not, you put Falk in. From a business point of view, yes, you put Falk in because Falk is like one of the few guys people actually know in Carolina, because Slavin's just sort of like this little college kid that just came out of Colorado, and you're just like, well, he's just this college kid. Like, I don't know who this kid is. But everybody knows Justin Falk. So, that, like, the business side, I understand that. But from a personal side, Jacob Slavin, young kid, really, he deserves this. I mean, that'd be a fun experience for them. I mean, for him and his family, I should say. Falk's already done this before, so why not throw somebody else in? Because it's like, obviously Falk is probably going to continue to go. As Carolina is going to get better, I don't think they're going to snub people. I think they're just going to be like, hey, you know what? Noah Hanifin's good. Let's add him and Justin Falk. Like, it's... So this one I wouldn't say is necessarily a problem. It's just one that I wish I could be 100% happy with. Like, I just wish it was... Because I'm sort of just torn into two. Because there were plenty of picks where I was like, wow, that's a really great pick. You know, I can't think of anybody else who's more deserving. Like, all the goaltenders. Sorry. Like... all but one of the goaltenders, which I'll get to in a second. Most of the goaltenders I thought, you know, like Devin Dubnyk there, or like Carey Price, like I thought, you know, these guys are super deserving. Like nobody, I can't think of a better person to replace them from their team. But like for this one, I just sort of was like, iffy. There's kind of that borderline, I don't know. So all aboard the Pastrnak train. Yes, I think like most people, I've sort of, been drawn to David Pastrnak one way or another, just sort of seen him on the radar, and I'm like, that kid's doing so good, because like, I don't know, you like to see young kids do good. When I would watch Behind the Bees, I saw him a lot on there, and I was like, look at this young little kid, his little foreign kid, he's so precious. Now look at him, like he's a seasoned NHLer, he's a man, he's pulling his weight, he's scoring goals. So I think, why not have him as your all-star for the Bruins? Because, I mean, he kicked it off right off the bat on the season. I mean, he's tearing it up. At the same time, though, I totally understand why Brad Marchand is there, because, I mean, Brad Marchand, he's that hardworking player. I mean, he's your gritty agitator. He's everything you love. Like, he's the dude that just personifies, I think, Boston sports and, like, the city as a whole into a person. And I really love that. I think he's a great personality to have on there, but I really, like, in a perfect world, I wish you would have been able to add Pastrnak on there, because, I mean, he's having a career year. He's had a really short career, but so far, it's been really good, though. So I think maybe not this year, but next year, I think he's definitely deserving of a nomination. This one was much like the previous one with Falk and Slavin. It's just sort of like, I'm not 100% happy with it. I think it would be like cool to add in another dude. This one though, I'm definitely more happy with than the Carolina one, but I still think like, hey, Pastrnak should have been considered. I'm sure he was, but I would have liked to see him on the roster. Y'all see this man right here? I mean, oh wow, Alex Ovechkin rips home 1,000th career point in opening minute versus Penguins. Pittsburgh always coming in clutch, man. I mean, for everything, literally everything. The Stanley Cup, I can't even remember anything else because I've like blocked out all my memories of Pittsburgh, but clutch. So anywho, you guys see this guy? You probably don't, because my camera's not going to focus on it because it's not autofocus, it's manual. Yeah, this man, Mike Smith, I mean, I opened up, I remember I was just like scrolling through and I was like, hey, let's look at the rosters, and I saw it and I was like, Mike Smith, like, what? Why? Gotta pick up my phone because I need my stats on Mike Smith. I ain't gonna commit these atrocities to memory. I mean, I don't know if it's just me because I'm a Coyotes fan, or at least like I'm a semi-Coyotes fan. I'm sort of like in there but out there. I don't know where I stand. But I just don't like Mike Smith. Like, he's just like, you know how like when you watch Carey Price, you're just like, oh my god, he's so technically sound. Like, rebound control is so on point. He's just so good. Like you get that feeling when you watch him. Mike Smith is the complete opposite. Like, I literally just get angry when I watch him play. Like, he just like, he just feels like everything's a mess and he's like throwing his limbs around. I'm like, he's gonna get sniped. Like, it's just gonna, everything is going to blow right past him. Like, I am thoroughly convinced at every game. I have no trust. I've just been like burned by him for so long. I'm just like, I don't trust him. I just don't think he's everything that he's cracked up to be. Like, I just don't think it. And I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but I definitely don't think he's an all-star. I don't know what to say about Mike Smith. I mean, honestly, there are games, yes, Mike Smith has been the hero. He's made 40 saves. I mean, 30 saves. I mean, hell, there's probably been a time where he's made 50 saves in a single game. I mean, so this guy, I mean, he has his time. He's very good, but he's a very, very spotty goaltender. Because I remember, hearing all about, because there was a time, like, for a few weeks, I was like, hey, like, let's watch some Coyotes games. Like, Perlini had just gotten called up, so I was like, okay, let's go and watch Perlini. So I've been watching the games, and oh my god, the broadcast, they were just fawning all over Mike Smith, and I was like, Brendan Perlini's here, Christian Dvorak's here, there are other guys on the team. You can talk about them, but I was like, no, let's talk about Mike Smith. And I was like, okay, 40 saves, shoving it down my throat, whatever. It was good, yes, I will admit. Like, he's put forth good effort, but then 2 nights later, I mean, he's pulled on 20 shots when he lets up like 3 goals on 20 shots. So it's like, we're sort of like, taking a step forward, taking 2 steps back, and it's like, And as the season progressed, it felt like he was having less and less of those stellar games and more of those bad games. So it's like, it's not like the Coyotes got worse. In fact, with all their call-ups they were making, they were probably getting better because the players that they were calling up, there is definitely like Team and Mike Smith. And I think there are definitely problems with Mike Smith that are not related to the team, which is why I think Mike Smith should not be an all-star. I mean, let me just clear this out of the way. Yes, Martin Jones does have a worse save percentage than Mike Smith does. I understand that. I love Martin Jones, though. I will defend him to the death, pretty much. But I understand, like, you know, stats aren't going to be great, but there's a lot that goes into goaltenders that maybe the stats doesn't show, especially when you're stuck on a bad team, because I mean, a lot of these goaltenders that are in right now are on very good teams, so of course their numbers are going to be good. So it's like, I'll give Mike Smith a break for that, but it's like, again, just, you don't really feel it unless you see him, and he just sort of lacks just that feeling of like when you watch Carey Price and you're just like, technically sound, like he's not technically sound. So it's a little, like, I'm nervous calling him like a good goaltender, much less an all-star. Because I mean, okay, how many times do you see an all-star make that giveaway against Anaheim a few nights ago that ended the game in overtime? Like, hell, even Jonathan Toews doesn't do that. And Jonathan Toews says he doesn't even deserve to be there. But let's go back to like all the fun and the character of everybody. Mike Smith is a good guy. Has a big family. He's going to have a lot of fun. So, I mean, that's going to be good. I mean, this dude's had a long career. He's been suffering with the Coyotes for how long? So it's good for him. But, I mean, we have to keep in mind this is maybe not the best decision in terms of, like, all-star. Like, this had me, like, livid when I read this. I was, like, sitting in class and I was, like, I texted my dad. I was like, Dad, this is not okay. What is going on? I don't understand. But then you run into the problem where it's like, you need somebody from the Coyotes, which I really wish you didn't, because, like, who is kind of really, really deserving? I mean, I would throw one of the rookies in there just because they deserve it and I love them. And, you know, there's a lot of guys who, like, deserve it just because it's like you feel for them. But in terms of skill-wise, yeah, who else were you going to put in there? Ekman-Larsson. And if you're not feeling that, I guess Mike Smith is really your only other option. That concludes that. It's the All-Star game. I think the All-Star game overall is going to go pretty good. Like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. Not as entertaining as it was when they still had the draft. But given the guys and personalities that are there, because I think personality trumps maybe some of the skill that's in this year. Not to say that these guys aren't, like, really skillful, but I just think, like, there were better choices. I think it's going to be a fun event. So it's like, don't think I'm going to be like, oh, boycott the All-Star game. I hate it. No, I'm never going to do that. Like, for real. Never going to do that. I love it so much. Especially because it's in LA. That's going to be a very good scene. Every goal it's scored, you can hear that train horn. I love that train horn. I wish I was lying, but, like, I really love that sucker. I want to go to the Staples Center and hear that. Like, that's loud and it's annoying. Given that my dad's a Blackhawks fan, it's even more annoying, and I freaking love it. So, bye guys. I am actually going to be, right after this, making another video about Brendan Perlini and his hat trick last night. Like and subscribe if you'd wish. Throw a comment down if there was anything you disagreed with me about, or any other questions you have. I really just love interacting with you guys, even if it's just like the simplest little comments. So thank you so much. Bye guys.